Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Philtown's updated portfolio for the second quarter of 2020. So I made a video a couple months ago talking about Philtown's first filing ever since he started his new Rule 1 fund, and recently his filing came up for the second quarter of 2020. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at in this video. What has changed, what stocks he's bought, and what stocks he sold, if any. And then at the end, we're also going to be taking a look at his options portfolio, which gives us a large amount of insight into what stocks he wants to buy and what prices he wants to buy them at. So I'll put a card up to the video where I talked about Philtown's quarter one filing if you want to go watch that first. And as always, this link for this filing will be down in the description if you want to read it for yourself. So here is the filing, and not really a whole lot has changed since the first quarter. If you take a look, his fund is still the vast majority in cash. Where if you look at the stocks, this portfolio is only 32% in common stocks, and the rest of it is in cash and money market funds, which essentially acts as cash. So right now, only a third of this portfolio is in stocks. This is something important to keep in mind because as Philtown wrote in his letter in the first quarter filing, he thinks the stock market is very overvalued and that we're going to have a big collapse in stock prices coming in the not too far future. So keeping that in mind, we can now take a look at some of the stocks he owns. So this is broken up by sector. So he owns around 10% in consumer discretionary, 10% in financials, and then industrials 3%, materials 3%, and then 6% in real estate. So his biggest position, the same as last time, is Bank OZK, which is also my largest position. I'll put a card up to the full analysis I made of that video if you want to go check it out. I'm still very confident in this bank. The reason why the price has fallen off a cliff in the past few years is because they mainly write loans for commercial real estate development projects. And so you really have two things dragging OZK's price down. The first one is back in 2018, they had a couple bad loans that spooked investors, and that resulted in the stock price dropping from over $50 to around $20. And then obviously at the beginning of this year, we had the pandemic, and that put a lot of fear around the commercial real estate industry. So again, Bank OZK took a dive. But I think this is one of the most conservatively run banks in the entire US. They have a great management team and a track record of success. And so while I think they might struggle for the next few years, as most banks will, I think it's extremely likely that Bank OZK will recover and get back to the high growth they were experiencing back at the beginning of this decade. All right, so right here we have a spreadsheet of all the changes in Philtown's portfolio from quarter one to quarter two. This was made by Investing with Tom, so a huge shout out to him. And I'll put a link to his channel down in the description if you want to check out some of his videos. So like I just said, he added to his Bank OZK position by around 18%. He had no change in his position in Stern, Ruger & Co. They are a firearms manufacturer. So we'll take a look at the positions he added to. First was, of course, Bank OZK, where you had a plus 18% addition. That makes sense since the price of Bank OZK has been depressed lately in the past few months. You also have a big addition in Boeing Company, over doubling the amount he had at the end of the first quarter. And so this is an interesting one. I don't love Boeing as a company, but I do think they have a pretty good chance of recovering, especially from how depressed their price was back in March and April when it was under $100 a share. There's probably a pretty good chance you're going to make some decent returns buying at those prices since they have a huge market share in the aircraft manufacturing space. It's basically them and Airbus. And so when you have a duopoly like that, they have a strong market position. Even with everything that's been going wrong with Boeing lately, odds are they will bounce back. They also added to Berkshire Hathaway. Not a lot to say there. Great company with one of the best management around. And an interesting position that Philtown added to his portfolio was actually gold shares. So he has the Spider Gold shares. I'm pretty sure this is just the GLD ETF. And this is an interesting position because most value investors like Philtown don't really see a place for gold in the portfolio. They'd rather own real businesses that will actually produce something of value instead of just having gold, which they think of an unproductive asset. But I think lately we've been seeing the shift first with Warren Buffett buying Barrick Gold and a few other traditional value investors going into gold, showing that maybe there's a shift going on. I think a lot of investors are realizing with all the actions the Federal Reserve has been taking, it's probably not a bad idea to have some gold in the portfolio as a sort of hedge against the worst case scenario of the dollar losing a ton of value. So that's why I think Philtown probably bought some gold for the portfolio. I'm surprised he didn't buy a gold stock though, because gold stocks are leveraged to the price of gold. If you think gold will go up, then gold stocks will probably go up even more. And so maybe that's just because Philtown doesn't really understand how to value gold companies. They're not really in a circle of competence, and they're not really in mine either. And that's why I bought Sprott for some exposure for me for gold. I'll put a video up to my analysis on the stock if you want to check it out now. And so I like them because they're not a gold mining company. They're an asset manager that focuses on metals ETFs. And so I think this is actually the type of company that Philtown would like and is a pretty good example of what he talks about in his books. They have a great management team. They are a very predictable, easy to understand business. And I think there are a lot of tailwinds that will continue to push that stock higher. So by any chance Philtown's watching this, you know where to look. Now, if we're looking at what positions Philtown completely exited out of, there were two. There's Goldman Sachs and Southwest Airlines. Not a big surprise here with Southwest Airlines. Pretty clear that the whole pandemic really put the airline industry in a tough position where they're now going to take on a ton of debt or dilute their shares, or both, neither of which is good for the shareholders. And then Goldman Sachs, I don't really know too much about them, but I do know Warren Buffett also sold out of his Goldman Sachs position. So that's probably something Philtown was watching. The other new position in Philtown's portfolio is Armada Hoffler Properties. Their ticker symbol is AHH, and this is definitely an interesting play. They're a REIT, and from first glance, it doesn't really look like they're too attractive. They have a forward PE of around 23. They have a dividend of 4.5%. But I do know that Philtown is pretty familiar with this company. I'm pretty sure he personally knows the management. And so that's probably why he bought into this company. Another thing to note about them is that they've had a ton of insider buying pretty much all of this year. Ever since March, when we saw the big stock market crash, it's been all insider buys for this company. So that's a good sign. I don't think that's something just to buy into a stock because you see insider buying, but that is one indication that insiders are optimistic on the stock price going forward. Another stock Philtown added to is Seritage Growth Properties. He added 37% to that position. And so this is definitely an interesting play. This is also a stock that Monish Pabrai owns, and a stock that Warren Buffett owns all the debt on this company. And so right now the stock is trading at around $14. And Philtown recently said a very interesting thing on one of his recent Facebook live streams. So I'll put a clip of that up.
Oh, we made some really good money back when the market dropped. Should I move back to cash now? I would say, Caesar, you do what I'm doing, which is looking at the companies that we jumped into. I'll give you an example. We bought SRG at $7. It went to 20, and we didn't sell it because I think it's going to go to 140 over the next 10 years. So I didn't sell it. Now, by the way, you guys, this is huge disclaimer time. This is not advice or recommendations.
Basically, Philtown is saying this stock could 10x in the next 10 years. Personally, I haven't really looked into this stock that much. They do have a lot of debt and they're in commercial real estate, which a lot of investors are scared of right now. But I think this is really an asset play where they have a lot of assets, buildings that aren't really being utilized to their full potential. And so I think the thought process is once the manager, fixes up these properties and charges an appropriate rent for them, they'll be able to trade at a much higher valuation than they are right now. But definitely interesting Philtown saying that this could be a potential 10x in the next 10 years. So it's definitely one that I'll put on my watch list and I will look into to see if I see any potential with this company. Now we also have Philtown's options contract with this filing, and this is very useful information because Philtown is someone that is selling put options. And so what that means is he's giving someone else his obligation to buy shares from them at a certain price at a date in the future. And so how this works is you sell a put option, and if the stock trades below the strike price, that is the price that Philtown would be forced to buy these stocks at. And so obviously if you're doing this with a stock, it's obviously a stock that you want to own at that price anyway. And if you look at the stocks he's doing this with, it's mostly the ones that are in his portfolio anyways. And so this is his way of averaging down where you can buy the stocks if the price gets down to the strike price, and you also get a premium just from selling those puts. So I think this is very useful because it tells you not only the stocks that he wants to buy, but also the exercise price. And this is him telling you this is the price I want to buy this stock at. So this information is incredibly valuable, a lot more valuable than only the actual holdings, because it tells you what his thought process is on the valuation of these companies, and they also have the expiration date for these options. So these are the time periods that these options will stay in place. Most of them are only through this year, but there's a couple going into January 2021. All right, guys, so that's it for this video. Let me know what you think about Philtown's portfolio and what you think his most interesting stock pick in his portfolio is. If you like these type of videos, definitely let me know in the comments, and I will make another video going over his portfolio once his new filing comes out for Q3 of 2020. If you found something of value from this video, be sure to hit the like button as it helps out my channel a ton, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon so you get notified whenever I put up a new upload. And that's it for now, so I'll see you on the next video.